I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council. And without you. I can't stay here any longer. Not now. I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council. And without you. This isn't about you. I can't stay here any longer. Not now.
Seen for generations, a Dyad in the Force.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Dyad in the Force. I am Elements with my co-host Choco. We are the Dyad. Episode 83. We are getting high up there. I mean, we are getting high.
I mean, you do you. I'm good with my feet on the ground here. Please do not be alarmed by the fact that my good friend Element 7 is not showing on screen. We'll have that rectified very shortly. But yeah, this is going to be an exciting episode because I've been waiting to talk Shadow of the Sith for a long time. Like, Luke Skywalker is my guy, and we've been needing more like sequel content. Now, of course, we the Mandalorian, everything that happens post Return of the Jedi is technically sequel content because it's all leading us there. But I mean, this one directly ties in with what we see in each of the episodes, and I love that we're gonna be able to jump into that a little bit later in the episode.
Absolutely. But first, we do have to kind of see if anybody has any announcements they want to share.
Let's introduce our these handsome gentlemen right here.
We'll start with
stop it.
We'll start with the StarWarsLawyer.
Hello, what have we here? My name is Chris, aka StarWarsLawyer, on everything that you do.
There's good news. Everyone in the chat, can we get an F in the chat? If y'all can see and hear us.
Nism subscribed to the
Without the council. And without you. This isn't about you. have to sort this out on my own. Without the council. And without you. This isn't about you. I can't stay here any longer. Not now. I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council. And without you. This isn't about you. I can't stay here any longer. Not now. I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council. And without you. This isn't about you.
Awesome.
Hey guys, we're back, I think. Type
Hello.
F in the chat. F's in the chat if you're back with us. A lot of technical difficulties.
Brief intermission.
Yeah.
Perfect time to go to the lobby. Get yourself a ice cold Coca-Cola. We're not
Or
sponsored.
some nice warm hot chocolate.
Yeah.
Daxon said that all of YouTube just went 404. Is that just because of us? Or is YouTube having
Probably.
troubles?
It's because for him, we are all of YouTube.
Mm.
There you go. Look at that message. That looks neat and clean.
Oh, that is slick. That's slick looking.
Yeah, so we're back. I think we were in the middle of Star Wars Lawyer's introduction, right? We were introducing. Go for it.
Yeah, so I'm Star Wars Lawyer, aka Chris. You can find me on all social media platforms. Any announcements I'm making. So a couple of things. One, here on YouTube, I released an edit a couple of days ago for those Stranger Things and Star Wars fans. Revenge of the Sith trailer set to Separate Ways, the Stranger Things remix. So check that out. And also, I am currently fundraising for a Darth Vader Empire Strikes Back cosplay. So if you want to donate, I would be very much appreciative of that, because it is going to cost a pretty penny. And I'm going to start doing a fundraiser benefit where I'm still working out the details, but if you donate a certain, or starting at the base with like $3, I'll record a message in the Vader voice and for like a commission for once I have everything, and then throw in some more dollars and I'll do the video and the full get up with it, so you could send videos to friends, birthday messages, prank your boss, I don't know. Yeah.
That's cool. I like it.
Where can we help with that fundraiser?
There is I have a coffee. I'll put the link in the chat.
Please do so I can pin it.
Yes.
Also, I mean, we're gonna be talking about Shadow of the Sith, and I think there's a pretty interesting episode of your podcast that happened recently, right?
Yeah. So on the day the book came out, June 28th, Too Black, Too Nerdy released an episode where we interviewed Adam Christopher, the author of Shadow of the Sith. I was fortunate enough to meet him at Celebration and talk to him a few times about the book, and about other Star Wars things as well. So I've been very excited about this book for a long time.
Yeah, super
Awesome.
cool, man.
Next up, we have making their debut, I guess, on Dyad in the Force is Grandmaster Bale.
Indeed.
How's it going, man?
Oh, it's going very well. Thank you very, very much for the invite.
Absolutely. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm Bale. Well, I make content on TikTok. I occasionally do tweets, but they're not anything particularly interesting. But I tend to kind of focus my content around Star Wars, all of Star Wars really, sequels, prequels, originals. I don't care. I love them all. That's my kind of thing, and I'm hoping on doing some coverage over The Boys as well, as I've just gone into that, and I have a very strong phase of Billy Butcher brain rot. So, yeah.
Yeah, it works. I mean, I feel that.
Yeah.
So is there like a narrative explanation as to why we care about 80% of your ceiling versus you in this camera angle?
There's a
Hopefully a canon explanation.
It's mainly because like the chair's reclined a fair bit, and if I level it, you'll see that I'm actually like this. And it's also to fit in the ridiculous purchases I've made on my wall. I mean, if I pan it that far that way, you'll see a lightsaber, but
The Grisk attacked Bale.
Hey,
I wish then
I got
Thrawn would
this-
come after me.
you know, this image of Bale just like approaching life at a recline at all times.
It's like he's just made the jump to hyperspace, and he's like,
Yeah. Pretty much. You should see how I'm sat when I'm driving, but that's a whole different thing.
I will say, I learned on a different podcast, obi-wan's podcast,
Yes.
that in front of Bale is an impressive shelf of alcohol.
Yeah.
There is indeed. It is above my head.
We may be able to sample some of that when we get to
Oh,
London.
absolutely. Oh, don't. I'll be showing you guys the ropes for good
Well-
drinking. Well, Weatherspoons, but
We'll share a glass or 3 over a game of sabacc.
yes. I'm
And
good for that.
for anyone in the chat, Grandmaster Bale came out to hang out with us for Star Wars Celebration here in Anaheim. So it's only natural we return the favor. But the only difference is he will be able to drink in the UK.
Yes.
Versus,
Yeah, I won't.
in America, he was not quite there yet.
I won't be sat there with my milk in a sippy cup. I'll be there
Oh,
with the JD
man.
and Coke this time.
Dex and Download says I need to make a Patterson just for Celebration. Probably won't go until it's back in the States. I'm pretty sure you meant Patreon, and that's an autocorrect. But we got you
Probably.
here. We can understand things.
What if Patterson is just a guy that donates money? It's like, I need a
It's
Patterson.
actually Robert Pattinson himself. He just funds everything for him.
Yeah.
Well, he is Bruce Wayne, so
Good point. Very good point.
So we need a, what is it? The Patton Man? Is that what they're calling him?
I've never heard that,
Battinson.
Now,
yeah, something
Oh,
like that.
Battinson.
I'm sorry. It's now Patman for me.
Do you guys have any
It's amazing.
announcements you guys want to share with everyone?
My life with content is very much whenever I have the time to make a video, I make one. So not really, other than maybe me talking about the boys on my TikTok. That's kind of it.
Right on. Chris, you already made your announcement. I've got
Yep.
your coffee right here pinned on the chat. If you guys want to help Chris out on his cosplay, you can hit that link up and give a few dollars, preferably
Much
coffee amount.
appreciated.
Yes, I'll be dropping some coffee there in a bit after the show. Definitely
Yeah.
wanna see the full-fledged creator experience. Or
Absolutely.
Darth
Once
Chris.
I financially recovered from the last celebration, I'll be sure to drop something in.
Absolutely.
I would love to throw in, but Choco is currently unemployed, so that's a new development for myself. So we'll see how it's a bold strategy. We'll see how that pays out. But bright things ahead for all of us, and especially for Star Wars fans. One of the things we do have to look ahead for is the Taika Waititi Star Wars film. Now, there was a recent interview where people started kind of going nuts, and I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on it. During an interview, he was telling a little anecdote about having a conversation with Natalie Portman, where he said, or she asked him, "What are you doing next?" And he said, "I have the Star Wars thing. Have you ever wanted to be in a Star Wars film?" And she was like, "I've been in Star Wars before."
A third of them, you could say.
So we just wanted to bring this out because people were having like a field day with this. Like, he shouldn't get to make films because he doesn't know them. Or I'm curious what you guys think about that whole thing.
Really quickly, Kenny Brock Jones asks, "Is the Taika project confirmed?" He's been writing it for a while now.
Yes.
So
And
more than confirmed, they're working on it.
yeah.
My whole thing is, okay, in my opinion, Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars film, right? Irving Kershner did not know everything about Star Wars.
Yeah.
He probably didn't know that much.
He knew what he needed to know.
Right. And so
Especially about familial
and that's
relations.
the thing, do you think even after watching it, he knew who Mark Hamill or Carrie Fisher? He might have known who Carrie Fisher was because she was Hollywood royalty. But do you think he knew who Mark Hamill was? Probably not. So, I mean, and then next you have Richard Marquand. Like, yes, they have George Lucas there, but they also have now the Lucasfilm Story Group. So it's not like it's just one person at the helm of this not knowing anything. Like, if he wants to bring Natalie Portman back for Star Wars, why would that be a bad thing?
No, it's not at all. I mean, I think after he said that, he like made like a little joke, like he inserted. He's like, "How about another take?" And I'm just like, "Oh, you mean like a Padme show or a movie?" And I think that's what I mean, just to cover his butt. I think that's what he truly meant. Would you like to come back? What do you think? What do you think, Bale?
I mean, the man was probably just having a funny 5 minutes and just thought it'd be funny about him saying that, "Oh, for a minute I forgot Natalie Portman was in Star Wars. I'm such an idiot." That's how I read it. A lot of people, I think, I would say reading a bit too far into it, but especially because, again, these stories go through so many levels of approval. They're not gonna like have some major continuity issues. I just think it's funny, to be honest. That's the main takeaway from me.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so where I come down with it is it's a non-story. He's telling this as an anecdote. Like, if you watch the whole interview, which I did, I watched the whole 30-minute interview, right? But right before this, he asked her, have you seen the movie Heat? She's in Heat, and he's like, and he laughs, and then this, just for a moment, he forgot that she was the actor who played Padme. Doesn't mean that he hasn't seen the movies, doesn't understand them, doesn't mean he doesn't know who Padme is. But you have to realize these people live in a different realm than us. Like, the difference between actors and characters is going to be viewed differently. And later in the interview, he talks about how he wanted to do something different, rather than tell attached tales. And in the interview, he goes, maybe I'll tell a story about what Jar Jar was doing right after Attack of the Clones. And they laugh about that. They're like, or maybe it could be a Jar Jar prequel story, and he knows the prequels. It's not like he's never seen them, but it kind of goes back to something else I think about, because I feel like everyone I've seen complain about this are typically in the same kind of anti-sequel camp. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if Taika is an original trilogy guy. A lot of people his age were the age group that didn't enjoy the prequels. And it makes me curious on how those people would feel in the future if they were offered on a Star Wars project. Would they respect like the sequels, those stuff that they don't like? Or should they not be allowed to in the future? I don't know. It's just an interesting thought.
Yeah, I just know that whatever he's going to put out there is going to be great, and it's going to be a breath of fresh air, because, as Choco said, they're in a different social sphere, and it's easy to forget that the people you call friends were like in a movie.
Also, I'm pretty sure he's forgotten some of his own stuff, and that's not uncommon. I mean, especially when you haven't worked on or touched something in 20 years, you may not remember every aspect of it.
Yeah.
Well, that and Natalie's not had much direct involvement with Star Wars at all since Revenge of the Sith, other than like the occasional press question, or I think she did the thing on a late night show. It's the song about the prequels. I don't know when abouts that was, but she's not like been openly connected to Star Wars with like Hayden and with Ewan. They've both been in Kenobi, so that's like quite an easy connection to make. And he's a director. I guarantee half of his mates are in about 50 different films alongside like his best mate like Dave from down the pub, who's directed another 25. Like, he can't remember everything.
Yeah. Nia Nanette says Patterson is just a nerdy sugar daddy. And that makes sense. Also, like, Amber says Taika possibly forgetting she played Padme doesn't mean he isn't qualified. And I kind of want to comment on that, because like even as we like hardcore fans, seemingly knowing everything about Star Wars, we'll make mistakes when we're casting new shows. Like we'll be like, oh, I would love this person to play this person, and you're like, oh wait, I forgot they were already in Star Wars. So it's just, we, even if it wasn't a joke and he did make a mistake, it's still just, it's a mistake. It has nothing to do with like, oh, he forgot, therefore his movie is going to be a complete garbage like bomb.
I would rather someone who makes a mistake about someone being in Star Wars than someone who looks at, let's say, Anakin offing younglings to save his wife as being justified. You can stay far away from telling Star Wars stories if that's the case.
Yes. Please stay away.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the time as well nowadays, news with Star Wars is just taken to an extreme. Like, we hear about one decision that they didn't make in Kenobi, it's plastered over your For You page. How dare they not do this? How dare they not include that? And these are like small little things that don't ultimately matter.
Yeah.
But they're blown way out of proportion. And I've seen a lot of Taika's work. I've seen What We Do in the Shadows. I've seen Hunt for the Wilder People. I know that his work is brilliant. I have a lot of faith in the man to make a very, very good job with Star Wars. I think it's over sensationalized.
And like I'm in the opposite camp, Bale, where I think the only project of his that I've liked is Jojo Rabbit. And
Really?
Not-
I'm still gonna give him a chance. If you bring up Thor Ragnarok, no, I absolutely loathe that movie. But
Oh god, we've had discussions about this, Chris. I know we have.
yeah, but
Chris, you are not going to enjoy Love and Thunder.
probably not. But I'm still gonna give it a shot.
I
Like,
think he will.
And that's a good thing that separates you from a good chunk of other people that would just write it off.
I mean, it
Like,
depends. How do you feel about Guns N' Roses?
Classic.
All right, you may find some value in it.
I'm going to see it tomorrow, so we'll see.
Okay.
I've had
Same.
part of the ending spoiled, so it is what it is.
God dang.
My For You page is just completely rotted by Star Wars and now the boys content. So I've managed to avoid everything to do with Love and Thunder, but I'm also watching
it was
it
Twitter.
Man,
Ah,
you'll need to start doing better. The last time I was spoiled was Rise of Skywalker, and I vowed never to have it happen again. So there's this app on Android. I'm pretty sure you can get it on iPhone. It's called Spoiler Warning, and you put in terms that you want to avoid, and it blacks out everything on your phone. That
With those
whenever you
words?
scroll to it, and it just blacks out everything.
that's very useful.
I did that
usually-
for other projects, but I was just like, yeah, whatever. I didn't care all that much.
Yeah, I have a focus mode on my phone now because a lot of you lot, you can wake up at stay up till midnight and watch the Star Wars shows, and then you'll drop it all in the Discord servers. I still get the messages, the notifications, and it's annoying because it's dead on 8 in the morning for me, which is when I need to go to work. So I usually have to put my phone in just mute every single notification mode, and I just do not touch it. But yeah, it's fun. The only thing I've really had spoiled was the Mando season 2 finale, and that was because my mum was like, "Oh, I'll watch it with you," and I'm like, "Okay, well, we'll have to wait a day." I was like, "All right," and I made the mistake of going down my Instagram feed, and naturally, what do I see but art of Luke, R2, and Grogu?
Dang,
Yeah,
that's rough.
damn. Still loved watching it, but still.
Now, as a hardcore fan, I do have to say, if it's Mando finale, you gotta watch it first day. I'm sorry.
I know, no,
But,
you're right.
I'd say the grace period for anything of that hype is if it comes out on Wednesday, by Friday.
Yeah.
You should have seen it. If it comes out on Friday, by Monday for sure, especially if you're going into work with other
Especially the
people who
weekend.
have seen it. It's safer that way. I'm not hating on anybody or dragging anybody that doesn't see it first day, but please protect yourselves and
Yeah,
at
no,
least
it's
see
it's not judgment, but it's a help me help you. You know,
Yeah.
we had Kenobi dropped early while we were at Celebration, and there were people we were at Celebration with that didn't watch it. It was like, I don't want to be spoiled. You're like,
You're in the wrong
where are
place.
we right now? Like, I'm sorry,
You're a Star Wars convention.
we're gonna go.
Uh,
I can't do more. You know.
Absolutely.
What?
You just gotta do the bare minimum.
Yeah. What gets me with me is when, so there's certain bits of thing where you can easily spoiler tag things. Easily, just 2 seconds, just putting a bit of text on spoilers, And
Yeah.
a number of times I've just seen someone put just a clip of the spoiler straight away with nothing like, no like edit, just the clip going, oh my god, this is insane. Like 2 hours after the things come out, I'm like,
The
I've
counter,
seen it. But
the counter to
please.
that, unfortunately, Bale, is that you cannot control that.
Oh no,
You cannot
of course.
control people, but what you can
No.
control is how soon you've seen it. So
Yes. No.
Also, I actually did spoil some things recently because my TikTok, when I was posting, had a glitch, and the thing I tried to post didn't. And when I did, I was like, "Oh, that's weird," because my screen like just went black, and so I shut down the app, reopened it, and I posted there. And it got rid of all my edits. So the question I was responding to that had the spoiler was just big, and it covered my whole face. It was like right in the middle. It was like, oh,
dang.
yeah, I'm gonna have to remove that.
Let's catch up with the chat. Shout out to Justin M and the Podwans podcast, Luke, who is also partnering up with Stream Lounge to do a rewatch of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series every Friday. If you guys want to tune into that, they'll be giving some cool stuff away, including a level up saber. Shout out to Luke, Char, and Harith. Also shout out to Darth Veritas. Hello to our good friend who's also adding to the law correction police, the TikTok story group, as it were. You
And
lot.
Chase as well.
Marvin
Hello,
Stevenson,
Chase.
is that you?
I'm just a huge fan of you. I'm sorry. What's up, Austin Sidhu? Yo, how are you guys? We are doing well. How are you? With the history avatar? We love history. What were you gonna say, Choco?
Oh, just happy to see these names in chat. Happy to see Veritas here. Happy to see Justin in chat. It's been a minute since I've been able to talk to Justin. Chase, Forward Into the Black, awesome people. You know, our Anaheim roommate. Looking forward to doing the same thing once again.
Killer
Awesome.
British accent. I try. Listen, I try. I once fooled my friend's wife that I needed a green card. Like, it was my first time. It was my first time meeting her, and I went up to Portland to meet her, and then I just introduced myself with an accent, and then I was like, I can help you get a green card. She's like, no, I'm from Cali. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't lie. It's a pretty good accent. Like, I've heard some other Americans try and do a British accent, and that is one of the better ones I've heard. Granted, most of the ones I have heard were horrendous, but
So relatively speaking,
It's just not terrible. Is what he's saying.
passable.
It's okay. My little brother, whenever he tries to do a British accent, the only thing he can do is ask for pancakes. I don't know why. We're like, do your accent? He's like, Mommy, I'd like some pancakes. We're like, why is it always pancakes? What is it?
Do you guys call it pancakes over there?
yeah, we call them pancakes.
Okay.
Occasionally, like, I think when they're sold as like pancakes, we occasionally call them crepes, but that's usually just because we're trying to be fancy more than anything else. Other than any actual reason, but it's mainly just pancakes.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I like crepes too. When I want to be fancy. Justin
Anything
says,
with sugar on it.
studies have shown that spoilers don't lessen enjoyment anyway. I avoid social media, of course, but it doesn't ruin my mood when I get a spoiler. I get cranky. Sorry, I'm like, it's a British Tourette's now that I've started doing it. I get cranky when I get a spoiler, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of like, it is what it is. I went on social media.
Sorry, Chris.
I still remember after I saw The Force Awakens premiere, like when it came out. The next day, I was in an ESPN article about the Detroit Pistons. And in the comment section was the full opening crawl, the full thing in the comment section about a sports article about the Pistons. Now, I had already seen it, but I got mad because I'm like, bro, ain't nobody come here for all that.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
My favorite one is another friend of the channel, BT Artist, got spoiled for something in Star Wars in a K-pop like message board. And
I'm pretty sure you're talking about Batardist.
Indeed.
Veritas says he'd love to hear it. No, I'm never going to attempt a Liverpoolian accent.
Oh god, that would be an experience.
Listen,
You never walk alone.
Our channel friend Connor has tried to give me some like pointers on like the Geordie accent, and just like it's not gonna happen. Not at all. Like I gumdun to I don't know. That's all I remember from what he told me. The only things that I do is like London and like Legolas. You know?
And Con Air.
Con Air. That's right. We like to do
It usually
Con
gets a
Air.
little bit less. I don't want to say extreme, but like easier to. I think this kind of accent is a little bit easier to do than some of the more like northern ones. I guess.
I mean, most of what I've studied for voice acting has been RP, so it's going to fall in between that and, you know, posh. Whenever I go into my Jason Statham, you know what I mean? I'll do what I do. Anyways,
That's amazing.
if the value is in the surprise and not the storytelling reveal of the surprise, then I find that not very valuable.
Ooh, that's a great point.
True. I mean, I'm just a sucker for a surprise. I guess.
I mean, the surprise adds to it, but you're right. Like,
Yeah.
like if it were to be a surprise that Cad Bane shows up in the Book of Boba Fett, but all he does is goes and then walks off, I'd be like, well, what the hell was that all about? he just he just tipped his hat and walked off. So there's
Exactly.
yeah, for sure.
I think we're in a very interesting time when it comes to media. I call it the soups era. I feel like No Way Home has ruined everything.
I'll bring this up now
It
as you're
has.
saying it. You could just say Star Wars theory.
There
Have I
gets
made
to
you
be
uncomfortable?
so much hype for cameos and things where you get a hit of dopamine from the shock factor that becomes all people are looking for. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Like if not getting that hit of dopamine from that is overshadows the overall storytelling, then it wasn't a very good show or movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It kind of summarizes. Sorry, Chris. Similarly to
You're good.
Star Wars Facts Guy did a video. As about PowerPoint presentations. Never have I agreed more with a take. It's just some people. It goes back to No Way Home again. Just want cameo after cameo after cameo with like no context. Like 3 episodes into Kenobi, everyone was like, "Where's the Clone Wars flashbacks?" I'm like, where's the place for them? We don't need them. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of when I did an edit that made Anakin speaking to Ben in the Rise of Skywalker, and somebody took my edit and said, "This fixes Rise of Skywalker," and I'm just like, all I did was add Anakin. It does not change the movie. And so that one thing that is giving you that hit of like, oh, I need Anakin, fix the entire movie. Like nothing changed about it. And so it's like, I don't understand how you can like completely disregard all of your problems with the movie because finally Anakin. So it's
Like
weird.
I've been spoiled for 2 things with Star Wars with the sequel. So I'm sitting in the theater that I was at Disney when they released it. So they were staggering the theaters every 15 minutes, so you could hear the other theater starting. So it's like 2 minutes before the movie starts. I'm going on my phone to get the Kylo Ren gif of when he activates the lightsaber, so I can tweet like, "And here we go" or something like that. I type in Kylo Ren. The second thing is kills Han Solo, and I'm like, and I get so mad, and my brother's like, "What?" And I was like, "Nothing." And I like, I forgot to gif it when everything. By the time the movie started, I had forgotten until it happened. And then the second thing was for the Rise of Skywalker. I read all the leaks for it. I just didn't believe they were real, and then they were. And I was like, "Oh," but I had forgotten until after the movie was over.
I mean, going back to the spoilers thing with the value, especially, like as I said earlier, I had the Mando Luke thing spoiled, and I will admit, I would have been a lot more excited had I have been watching that and just had been revealed that. That did not take away the magic of the moment of seeing him just go absolutely batshit with his lightsaber. I still loved it, but so I do kind of get that point.
I like this by Amber. It's the junk food dopamine hit versus sustained pleasure, and it kind of reminds me of a George Lucas interview where he said like the dark side of the Force is like this huge jolt of pleasure that it's unsustainable and you need more of it. You need to sustain it, but then like the light side is joy and you get happiness from like helping others, and it's sustainable. It's more perpetual in that regard, and I think a lot of these people who need Clone Wars flashbacks or bust are dark sides.
Yeah, it's.
Oh, this one's a good one. I have been getting comments nonstop with how the sequels broke the rules, and I'm like, what rules, my friend? Exactly.
The whole
Hyperspace
maneuver
rules?
breaks Star Wars lore.
What's funny with that is that most of the hyperspace lore comes from like the High Republic era, and I guarantee none of those commenters have read the High Republic era, so they have no idea about half of the hyperspace
there
lore.
were no hyperspace rules in Legends.
No. And I'm assuming they turned a blind eye to when they hyperspace collided into a planet in the Clone Wars. But because that's the same thing. But it's fine because it's not in something I don't like. So
Or in the expanding universe where both Palpatine and Luke could just open up wormholes through hyperspace. Of course. There's weird stuff happens.
Or that his force,
Legends is a goofy place.
Sidious's force storms tore the fabric of reality. Like, what is reality with all of the, different
I don't know. It comes out of the page like it breaks a fourth wall.
Oh god.
Have a good night, Darth Veritas. Thank you for tuning in. I know it's very late for you guys, or early, or late.
I think it's still under the border of late. It'll be early with maybe 2 hours, but currently it's late.
I need more lore and backstop for the Santekas, or backstory for the Santekas. I certainly believe that that's exactly what we are going to be getting. If you look at the age of Mari Santeca and how far we're going back, I think, remember when Darth Bale wrote a pterodactyl? He straight rode one. Like he waited for the atmospheres to get close and rode it from one from like a moon to a planet.
I forgot all about that until this moment.
That was wild.
This is all great because then he follows it up. God forbid Leia floats back to a shipwreck. I mean, listen.
Kanan did the same thing, but no one cares.
Well, that's because they didn't watch Rebels.
Yeah.
Well, some of them did.
Yeah. Ezra rode Purgles through hyperspace. So, I mean, listen.
You're telling me you wouldn't?
I would, but I wouldn't have a problem with any of that. Just because, like, you know, when it comes to lore, we're always updating our archives. We're always updating our lexicons. And we've been saying this from the beginning. The moment you say that's impossible, you've already lost. Because they could come out with a book tomorrow that's like, oh yeah, hyperspace is the world between worlds, and we've confirmed that theory, especially Choco's theory. And then there will be people who just like, that's impossible. Like, that's against the rules of the world between worlds. And I'm just like, there are no rules.
Remember,
Like, this is
when
what it
Luke
is
went
now.
Super Saiyan in Legends?
Oh,
It's-
the oneness with the Force when you're not dead.
Yeah.
It's so
I
funny
never
to me
liked that.
because it's all a fictional universe. If you are so strict about the rules in a fictional universe, don't watch science fiction. It's not for you.
Yeah.
If you're gonna constantly say this breaks science, this isn't how science works. The gravity's weird thing. It's a
But it's
spell
not even-
about space wizards.
It's not even science fiction, man. It's
Science
space
fantasy.
fantasy. Sorry. Yes.
So when they say
but,
all
like,
of these things, like about like hyperspace and the hyper drives and all of that, it's not based on science.
I mean, more like I've seen some people making arguments about like gravity and like how Padme jumped off of the what's the name of the post in Geonosis onto the
Reek.
onto
Yeah.
the Reek, and they're
Shadow
like they're
of
doing maths with the distances. They're like, technically this is like so many newtons worth of pressure. She can't survive this. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's a Star Wars movie. It's a Star Wars movie. They're using laser swords. Come on.
I mean, I think that the best thing for me is just the fact that when you shoot a panel, what happens? Sometimes it opens something, sometimes it closes something and locks it. I've seen the doors get stopped halfway through. Like it just does whatever you want. You just have to think about it and hope, and then shoot the panel, and that's what happens.
and then it always comes back to Harrison Ford saying, "It ain't that kind of movie, kid."
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Amber just started the High Republic read through, and the lightsaber lore destroys every complaint about sabers lately. I don't understand the complaints about lightsabers lately, anyways. Like,
What were the complaints?
just like Disney doesn't know about lightsabers. Like, it's not as lethal as they used to be, and it's just like it's hyperbolic because lightsabers are lethal. And just because there are a few select scenes where they are not lethal does not mean this is Disney's. They have a, what is it called? An anti-dismemberment clause.
Well,
Like Kylo Ren literally bats someone's head off. Like
in the previous episode, a stormtrooper gets split in two. What? Like, I think as well, and this is my kind of headcanon explanation for it. Jedi restraint of not just cutting him in half, it's just doing the necessary, but not doing the more. That, and they don't complain when it's Fallen Order. They're fine with that, but as soon as it's the show, they're like, oh no.
Yeah, I mean,
we've actually
don't
gotten
like
the
that.
most dismemberment since Disney has purchased.
Oh,
Like
exactly.
nothing is more gruesome than
Like-
than what happened to Snoke, you know.
Well, I had a comment on something recently about how the gore's been turned down, and I literally questioned the guy. I'm like, what gore was turned down? Like, the Clone Wars. I'm like, what gore is in the Clone Wars? Someone gets rammed and then it goes off the screen. You don't see anything.
Yeah.
Have you
Daxon,
looked at the comics or anything?
I promise you, Daxon, we're not getting off track. This is part of the fandom checkup, but yeah, we are going to move forward. We're just like, when it comes to the fandom stuff, there's a lot to talk about. But
It's a wormhole.
It is. So let's move on to our Dyad book club checkup. Last week we introduced our first book to the Dyad book club on Dyad and the Force, and this was Catalyst by James Luceno. And this will go into Rebel Rising and into Andor. So
That's a good one.
we read the first 7 chapters of Catalyst. Excuse me. And let's talk about it. Chris, I'm pretty sure you are handling business. Maybe making some back alley
Important
deals.
lawyer stuff.
He's lawyering at the moment.
Above the board
Yeah.
stuff. Always.
Having
So
the time of his life, I'm sure.
what were you so we'll start with you, Bale. Like had you read Catalyst before?
Yes. So I have, but this is going to go into my very small tirade about James Luceno. I love his stories. I find it difficult to absorb some information from what he's, because there's so much there. There's so much to absorb. I get confused. But from what I can recall, and the first 7 chapters that I've reread today, it's very enjoyable. It gives a lot of context to the stuff that was left unanswered. Like, I, for one, after watching Rogue One, was like, okay, sorry, the Geonosians had the plans, and then it was Krennic's. What's going on there? And this book has kind of gone, oh, here's the solution. And it's answered a lot of questions. And the first 7 chapters as well it wrote Jin's parents so beautifully in how they both interact with each other and how they care, and Galen in particular, and how interesting he is. I think he's probably one of the most underrated of the new characters that Disney have introduced, or that have been introduced underneath Disney Lucasfilm. But the first 7 chapters, yeah, I really enjoyed them.
Justin says, I'll talk about this in the roundtable, but what possessed James to make a character named Haas?
He wanted to name him Han, but realized that one was taken.
Haas Nolo.
Yeah, it's you. I am me. He is you.
You is blind. So it's definitely interesting to read about like the beginnings of this, especially going back to as far as like mid Clone Wars, right? You see the plans in Attack of the Clones, and but then you read this and you find out that Galen has been part of this thing since then, since the Clone Wars started, and it hasn't been like, oh, just around like the Rogue One times they got him on board. Like it was fascinating to learn all about what his background was in, you know, energy enhancement and the research that he had done and synthesizing crystals.
Yeah. It adds a lot of information around the crystals as well, because before this we kind of just knew that they were used in the Death Star. We saw like the big crystal in Rebels being used for the Death Star, and we know that they're used for the lightsabers. This kind of opened a doorway to how they could have been used differently in canon. And then at the end it kind of concludes to why the Jedi recommend that you leave them alone for very good reason. And I think there's one on Exegol, isn't there? There's a big red crystal. I forget exactly what that's powering, but
it powers all the ships in Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, well, in which case, it's a very good reason of why you don't use kyber crystals for the wrong thing.
And blinded Ochi of Bestoon.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not a bad thing, though, is it? That's a good thing.
Yeah,
But it's relevant for our next topic.
It is indeed.
One of the things I really enjoyed, though, is like you said, actually a lot like Justin is saying here in the chat, so the way that they framed it as an arms race really put some confusion from me to bed, because I had not thought of it that way. If you hear they're trying to build this weapons platform that's going to be unlike anything you've ever seen, and then now the Republic's like, well, now we have to do something, and the way that they go into how, because we think of these things as entities, right? But all these big entities are run by regular people, regular scientists. And like, okay, now these certain labs are getting military funding, and it's so lucrative that they're joining allegiances to one side or the other, and he just wants to stay neutral. And also, this book puts a lot of respect on Krennic's name for who he is and how clever he actually is. He's not smart, but he's very clever. And you know, he just has that weaselly way, and I love how we kind of established this relationship where Galen is I feel like he and I share some similar like neurodivergence, where where everyone else can clearly see Krennic is not your friend. He's a terrible person. He's trying to manipulate you, and Lyra is like, that guy is the worst, and he's like, but he's my friend.
Yeah, I mean,
funny.
in regards to the arms race, it also kind of like shined a light on, you know, the consequences of apathy, the consequences of trying to stay neutral in a war when you're a scientist, or when you're trying to just make like developments and progress and energy. It also shows us that no matter what you think of the Republic, separatists ain't gonna do crap for you either. Because we always get these like stories of people who's like, oh, I'm so disgruntled with the Republic, I chose to side with the separatists. Then like months later, it's like, yeah, I kind of realized that was a bad idea now.
Yeah.
And they didn't deliver on any of their promises.
No. It certainly provides a lot of insight in that, and I think that almost the fact that it's almost a similar journey that Jin kind of went through, I guess, in terms of the neutrality side, of the trying to staying neutral and then realizing actually do have to pick a side at the end. Otherwise, you'll end up in a little bit of a pickle. But yeah, that's one thing I didn't actually really consider, because I'll be completely honest, when politics is written into Star Wars books, it takes me about 4 different rereads before I fully grasp what's going on. Like, I've reread Plagueis 3 times. I'm still getting my head round what went on for half of that book.
Still.
I'm nearly there.
So we got Catalyst, we got Plagueis, we got Tarkin. Yeah, you're having fun with these James Luceno books.
Again, the stories are excellent. My poor tiny little British brain struggles to comprehend some of the information. But it truly is a very beautiful story at the end of the day.
Chris, how did the first 7 chapters of Catalyst treat you?
So this is my second read, but it is the first time I've read it in 4 years, I want to say. I think it was around the time The Last Jedi came out, or maybe after, I don't know. But I enjoy the characterizations that we get of the Ersos and Krennic, because with, you know, the Ersos, you get to see more of their relationship and how they operate, which is nice because we don't get a whole lot of that in Rogue One. But to see that Galen is this conscientious objector gives credence to why he sabotaged the Death Star the way he did. Not in a way that would make it implode on itself outright upon activation, but one that could be exploited once put in the right hands. And of course, the people he trusted, the person he trusted was his daughter. And then with Krennic, like you were saying earlier, Choco, he's not smart, but he is clever. And to see how he's able to sort of sidestep around Masameda, and then work with Haas, and, you know, as soon as he sees Galen, like, hey, I just ordered the deaths of a whole bunch of people. Give me a hug, big guy, you know. And Galen's just like, and he knows Galen is a pacifist, and Galen's just like, what?
Yeah,
and also that, you know, if he was really of course Galen doesn't know this, but, you know, Krennic, like, oh yeah, no, I knew him from back in the old days. Let's not help him until we can manipulate the situation to our advantage.
Yeah. Like, on top of that, like, the way he lays out his plan to get Aelin on board, because he's like, you know, oh, Galen's surprising me here because he's approaching me for a project, but he's like, no, I won't. And then he plans to get him on smaller projects, working his way up to the special weapons program. It shows like a degree of Palpatinism in him. Grooming.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you think of like the company that he was working for before, And he's like, have they reached out to do anything? The answer was no. And it's because Krennic used the Republic to say, don't reach out to help him, like intentionally. It's crazy.
Justin says also the really well laid out Chekhov's gun of what workforce could we even get to build such a thing knowing the future. That discussion was very interesting. And his big takeaway was the sequence in Lyra's point of view where we not only learn about her view of the Force, but her and Galen's history. Those paragraphs were just really well done. I absolutely agree. Just the look into Galen and Lyra's relationship and their history, as well as, you know, the circumstances that led to Jin's birth on Vault. It's just very, very interesting to know.
The origin of Stardust.
Yes. The flecked eyes.
I
would
mean,
like to see what that looks like.
Absolutely. It almost adds it also adds a lot of, well, at least in my opinion, this book makes it all the more depressing when you get to Jin, because you know her parents loved her parents cared for her, and then she kind of just got like, nope, you're not getting them, they're getting swept off to the side. And then you get the added stuff from Rebel Rising, which I have read, but I'm not going into that. And then Rogue One, and like, that's not the ideal life now, is it?
No. Also with the fact of, like, you know, war profiteering, selling to both sides, it's you know, Zerpin. I think they're all Serps or something with that name.
Yeah, I kept because I did the audio book, and I kept, after reading Master Apprentice, like, I kept hearing Zerkin. I was like, no, this is Zarpin. This is different. Different coat of paint.
Minimal difference.
But the same issue.
Austin Shock, thank you for tuning in. I'm very glad I read Catalyst before seeing Rogue One, even though Rogue One is my least favorite. It really enhanced the experience in theaters for me. Yeah.
I had the same exact experience. It was my least favorite for a long time, but this book really did help. But that's why I really enjoy, you know, reading, going back through this and setting, you know, the stakes and kind of spending some time marinating in the universe of this political upheaval that's happening at this point in time that we're going to be jumping right into once Andor comes out. So I'm hoping this is going to spark a lot of really awesome conversation and really cool content from a lot of different people.
Absolutely. And so that'll wrap up our discussion of the first 7 chapters of Catalyst. We are now on to 8 to, let me look at our division again, even though it's another 7. 8 to 14. So if you guys are keeping up with the book club leading up to our round table with the entire book club, next week we'll be covering chapters 8 to 14 of Catalyst. And can't wait for that to happen. You know, we're just gonna get deeper and deeper into the book and learn more about crystallography, everyone's favorite minor. Austin says, even though I wasn't too much into Rogue One, I'm very excited to see Andor and those more personal stories too. Yeah. And I highly doubt that they're going to make it about Jedi and Sith. I think this is going to be an interesting breath of fresh air for a lot of people who like the Separatist and Republic and political aspects of Star Wars.
Yeah, absolutely.
But do you guys have any final thoughts on 1 to 7 before we kick things off to the Chris segment?
No, just excited to have this to talk about every week and have the round table eventually. But yeah, let's jump into Shadow of the Sith.
Yep. And just so everyone is aware, please lurk and mute if you don't want to be spoiled for Shadow of the Sith. Just like Pat here says, no sound on to avoid any spoilers, but just wanted to say hi and how amazing you 4 are. Thank you, St. Pat, and shout out to St. Pat.
Thank you, Pat. Very nice.
Pat is the man.
But don't leave. leave the sound on. Give us that lurk. So I guess we can start with Shadow of the Sith. I'll start with the most basic question for you guys, and that is, like, where does this book rank in totality of all the other books for you guys? And we'll start with Bale because Chris has something in the chamber.
I think this is second place.
Wow, really? Number 2?
Yes. I mean, I'm a Thrawn fan. You can't top Lesser Evil, but I was tempted to actually rank it better than Lesser Evil because I enjoyed it that much. But it was a incredible story, added a lot more to lore than I thought it would, and that's my favorite kind of book. But yeah, I'd say probably 2. I'd say top 3 are probably currently Lesser Evil, Shadow of the Sith, and Brotherhood, and then probably the rest of the Thrawn trilogies.
Yeah. Chris?
So I don't have a definitive rank because right now it's duking it out for the Rising Storm as my number 1 canon book because I absolutely love the Rising Storm. I could not put that book down, and it's the same thing with this one. I was at lunch, I read it. I got off work, I read it. I was on the way to the movies, I read it, watched the movie, started reading it again.
This episode not sponsored by Reddit, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've waited for so long to be able to talk to people about it because I got the book like May 8th and I had finished it May 9th. And I was just like, I'm waiting. Like, it took me about 4 hours to read the book.
Wow.
And
I'm impressed.
I'm a lawyer. I can read fast.
Clearly.
This is true.
But it was a really a breath of fresh air for me being able to see this kind of story with Lando at the heart of it, learning more about Rey's parents and seeing Luke as Grandmaster Luke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Choco.
Also knowing how close they were to
Just right there. Just like this much.
pain. Pain.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I mean, this is, it's not in my top 10, it's just outside of it, but I am so happy to get a good Luke book in canon. Sorry for anyone that loves Weapon of the Jedi or Heir to the Jedi.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you which one was which, and I don't like either of them. That being said, though, this book did. I had a little bit of trouble at the very beginning, and I had a little bit of trouble at the very end. But the whole middle journey sucked me in and didn't let me go, and that's the feeling I long for, that feeling of like, oh, I just like, I'm trying to go to sleep and you're lying in bed and you're like, but I need to know what happens on that space station. I need to know that they get off okay. That's a feeling that I long for, that it did give me. And so, yeah, this was a great read. I do recommend it to anyone. And it's funny because I feel like some of my recommendations end up falling into this, where I'm like, if you love the sequels, this is up your book. It's a love letter to them. It takes you deeper into them, and it just makes you enjoy all of the characters, and you'll notice and respect a bunch of things more. But if you hate the sequels, you should read this book, because
Yes.
Especially if you hate the Rise of Skywalker.
there's a bunch of things in here that people, because a lot of the stuff is stuff that we were speculating on either way, right? Obviously Rey's last name isn't Palpatine, because if you were a clone on the run, you're not using the name Palpatine. But this like straight up just tells you, gives us the answer, gives us a lot of answers to things that we were curious about. They aren't necessary to understanding Rey's journey, but there are things that we were curious about. I'd love to find out that information.
Absolutely.
So,
It definitely enhances the Rise of Skywalker, but also the sequel trilogy as a whole because of Rey's story. Because of her being left on Jakku is a story throughout the sequels. And then it just enhances, you know, when you see the Rise of Skywalker and Lando's there all of a sudden, you're like, what the hell is Lando doing in Pasana of all places? And then he's like, yeah, I know about the Wayfinders too. I was with Luke. And he's like, what's going on here? So there's a huge story there, and this is the book that tells it.
yeah.
Do you have something to say?
Yes, very briefly. Especially, it adds that context to the line about Lando with his daughter at the end of the film, and it makes that so much more saddening. Of like the looking back on it, it just adds context, and that's one of the things I love about this thing. And I had a slight dispute with someone about this. It's not necessary. It's not that they missed out necessary information in the Rise of Skywalker. It's that this just perfects and adds context to things that makes things so much enjoyable, and that's what I like about this book.
Chase says, I hear Lando lives.
Can confirm.
Yep. Double confirmed.
Or that could be a Strandcast clone of Lando that we see.
I mean,
You have
he
to read
was.
the book.
He was originally a clone in one of the early drafts of Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, he's actually Lando.
Shout out to our boy Luke.
So I think for me, one of the great things about this book is that it's pretty self-contained. You don't have to read or watch anything else to really understand what's going on, but it will enhance your experience once you're like, oh, there's that person's from this, and that person's from this, and that person's from this. And as I've seen several people on Twitter, which I didn't know, people had that much love for Shriv. Like,
Yeah.
finding out Shriv is some of people's favorite character, and I'm like, all right,
Oh yeah,
go Shriv.
Shriv is the dude.
It's one of those books
Need a
too that
Shriv book.
rewards you for having read other material.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, finding out about Kiza and also finding out about Noctis,
Mm-hmm.
and if you had read what's
Dark Legends.
Yeah, what's that
Yeah.
story called? Immortal.
Is that one canon?
Well,
Dark
Dark Legends is canon.
Dark
Dark
Legends.
Legends.
The book is canon, but these are stories being told. So the nature of the story is somewhat nebulous, but it's a legend being told in the canon universe.
So the best way I
Right,
could
yeah,
describe it is that it is a canon book, and the stories being told, it is canon that those stories have been told. Whatever
Okay.
the stories involve are not. Like, they're not confirmed. Just like Legends of Luke Skywalker, those stories canonically were told. Whether those stories were true in nature it remains to be, you know, it's mythic at this point.
So you're saying that there's not a little flea inside of Luke's hair controlling him like Ratatouille throughout the...
Exactly what I'm saying.
Interesting. Yeah, the
Choco, you've
Legends of
made
Luke
my head
Skywalker
canon
book.
for the day.
It's in the Legends of Luke Skywalker book.
Mhm.
It's a weird book. There's, yeah.
Yeah, so when it comes to books like that are canon, that is basically what it is. Like, canonically, these people are telling stories.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to them within the canon timeline, you'll meet them. It's like, yeah, I know that story. I told it. And so if they tell it again, it's probably gonna reek with plot holes and inconsistencies because, you know, telephone game. But that's how we treat the canonicity of those books. But like the story of Noctis and her chase for immortality, and getting to meet Sanguis, I believe. And realizing the cycle that they had perpetuated, and then going into this book. First of all, Exum Panchard is like a crazy good name for a Sith. It almost makes me think that they were trying to like do a canon XR.
His story. I mean, this book gives us a lot of really cool dark side and Force lore in general, and that's one of the things I've been missing. And I love that there's quite a few projects lately that have been giving us more Sith stuff, and I'm here for it. But like the way they tell his story made me think of like Hedonism Bot from Futurama, but like as a Dark Lord. And I'm here for it, you know?
Absolutely.
It always, throughout that book, it threw me off them calling him Viceroy because I could only imagine him as the name Moidian. I hear Viceroy, I'm like, that's just Newt Gunray with a lightsaber. Like, it's just... But I would say that the story behind that mask is one of the things that I found so enjoyable. It's just such a cool piece of lore. They're the kind of things I really love learning about through these books, is those ancient artifacts that have somehow, I think it's because I've started getting into the Old Republic a little bit more recently, but like just these connections and these cool little artifacts, I love that side of Star Wars.
Yeah, and it kind of drives home this purveying theme in canon with Sith lore about masks. Why does every Sith wear a mask? And that's simply because their means of immortality is being tethered to this stuff. And so we have Momin, we have Exim, we have even Darth Vader who you know had some stuff connected to the mask at some point, even though it was all perpetuated by Palpatine at that time. But like even Bane's mask as well. Bane is tethered to his tomb more than his mask, but like it still kind of like reaffirms this whole mythos behind Sith and wearing masks and being able to persist after death, even like despite not being able to do so in the way that the Jedi on the light side achieve it.
Yeah. I mean,
the difference between the material, the attachment to the material versus the ability to let go and persist in the immaterial.
Yeah,
exactly that. I was going to say quickly as well, it's good to know that Bane is tethered as strongly to his tomb as he was to his pterodactyl, so that's a good thing.
I have to ask
try and
Chris,
reference that again.
I have to relay this from Chase in chat. How often is new evidence presented in a courtroom and you go, hello, what have we here?
I've never had to do that.
Are you going
to? That's disappointing.
We'll see.
See, I'm going to have to try and end up in one of your hearings now, Chris, just so I can present new evidence.
I will. That's not how that works, Bale.
I don't know how court works. Chris.
I will show up to one of your cases with a cape and try to give it to you and have you wear it during your closing.
I make no promises.
It'll be a nice cape. No, getting more Exegol lore specifically, and I want to know what's in the depths. How far does it go? You know what I mean? Like, there's so much more I want to explore about that world.
And when Kylo was pushed down there, did he go down to the depths and like reach like one of the catacombs and just like, what the hell's going on here?
And Noctis was like, he's like, oh Jesus.
That's what woke him up. He's just like knocked out, and then he's like,
you know the cartoons where they jump comically high. That's actually how he got back up. He just got terrified, just like boing.
Then he landed and was like, ow.
He did the Obi-Wan and Luke jump.
Yeah. But we get more stuff with the Acolytes of Beyond, who I think is a fascinating group. I'm going to be writing my own fanfic involving them.
Talk about
I was going to ask with them, the advisor that looked after the Pantoran, I've forgotten her name. I'm bad for names. The one that brought her into the
Yuptashu.
Was he one of Palpatine's advisors?
Yeah.
Yes.
So is he the one? Was he one of the ones that you can see in Return of the Jedi?
In Return, you can see him in a film. He's in a film.
I know that because Darth Veritas, in fact, did a video recently, and it had the Palpatine's advisors. I'm like, is that him?
Yeah.
Or am I being?
Yuptashu is in one of the movies. I can't recall which one.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was.
Sorry.
I think it was Return of the Jedi. I think. When Vader like interrupts him
Comes
and all
in.
of the advisors leave. He is one of them. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And he's
Sorry,
also
I had
heavily
watched this.
featured in the Aftermath book.
Oh, yes, that guy. I'm so bad with making these connections. I'm very bad with names.
That's
but
also
the stories are always great.
a Y name for the name game.
Yeah.
Noctis, is this a book? Final Fantasy 15 tie-in? No.
It's a Kingdom Hearts tie-in.
I do love Noctis.
I just love all of the lore, especially like the Jedi lore too. In this book, with Luke, it's
And Anakin.
That
Python
part.
stuff was good.
All right, now that you've brought that up, we're gonna start talking about our main highlights from this book. And that was a highlight for me, honestly. I hate to be the guy that's like, oh, I got Anakin, that made the whole book. No, I'm just saying, like, that was a pretty neat highlight. It was like as someone described to me, I forget who it was, but shout out to them if you're watching, you know it's you. It was kind of like Arwen across the banks of in Lord of the Rings. If you want him, come claim him. And then we got like a very surreal remix of Anakin's betrayal, and I feel like if they released the soundtrack to Shadow of the Sith, it would be like Anakin's back. I don't know, but it was a very palpable feeling, like a cathartic feeling.
Mm-hmm.
When he came back and like practically double canonized both Choco and I's interpretation of balance in the Force and how the Force flows and is a river, and there are those out there that would seek to change its course. And I thought for the longest time our watermill and dam kind of analogy was true, and that's not to say that is the final interpretation of it, but it's knowing that Anakin also sees the Force in that way and interprets it that way, it's affirming.
I hope that in some way or another we influenced that to happen, but that's wishful thinking. For me, and this is much simpler, and Chris already knows what I'm gonna say. Luke and Lando just having hot chocolate just made me so irrationally happy, because all throughout the expanded universe, Luke is just drinking hot chocolate, and he's like, "Lando introduced me to this. It's called chocolate," and he's confused and stuff, and like. Just to have that through line come back, I don't know. I got so irrationally happy hearing that part. Also, oh my goodness, why is the name not coming to me? The character that they had it with, that was a former member of the Acolytes of Beyond.
Comet.
Yeah, that's
Comet was such a cool freaking character, and a droid as well.
Yes, the droid.
Just was like Ash on.
Mm-hmm.
Remind me of Ash on what's it called?
Apex
Shooting game
Legends.
that we play.
It's cool that you can see her armor in the Rise of Skywalker that Lando's then wearing. I thought that was a really cool tie-in.
Yeah.
it was windbreaker armor, wasn't it? Something along
It
those
was, yeah, it was
lines?
Woodbreaker out.
We get another white lightsaber in canon.
Yep.
We
Yeah.
love to see it. That and that Luke went through that process was also cool. The purifying of the crystal has always been a particular part of Star Wars that I've found very interesting. And I'm hoping that they'll do it in Tales of the Jedi, but we'll see. Because the Ahsoka adaptation of it in the book wasn't particularly. But
We also have the scimitar lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see how Level Up or Mr. Allen or any of those lightsaber fabricators going to come up with that.
thing with
the-
that lightsaber. Sorry, go ahead.
Just the light whip in general. Like when they started releasing those, I was like, dang, how are they gonna do this this thing and make it light up uniformly?
I was confused when I read it. I didn't realize it meant like curved blade till the end. I thought it meant curved hilt. Because I was like, oh, is it just a curved blade? But I eventually grasped it because I think on the cover it's straight, isn't it?
It's well, on the cover. I think it is straight, right?
On the cover, it's the first lightsaber.
Yeah, it's that one.
You remember
Blades.
partway through, their lightsaber gets switched.
Mm-hmm.
This
when
is
they go to
another
the
instance
vault.
of me needing to pay more attention.
Oh my goodness, the way they wrote Kiza's internal monologue or internal dialogue when
It was amazing.
when it goes back and forth and like the mask is there and you got the Green Goblin vibes from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, it was chilling.
Did any of you do the audiobook for?
I did both.
No,
I
I
always
haven't
read
done
and
it.
listen.
I have not listened to it. I received, I got just a regular book. I do plan to go to revisit it in audio format though.
The audiobook did a very good job with the mask. Like there were like screams and it was chilling. It was very, very well done. I really enjoyed that part of it. Like it was excellent. Like that mask as a whole was one of the coolest things in that book, and the audiobook just improved it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, Daxon download says the sickle blade is menacing. It can reach around another blade, which is true. Can you imagine fighting someone and you block and it just like pokes you in the ear and you're like, ah!
That's exactly how you would react to. "Ooh," like a Q-tip, like an,
Yeah, it's like a wet willy but with fire.
Also,
See, I
CJ
think-
says the whole adventure of this book reminded me of the Jedi Academy trilogy era of books.
I agree.
And Daxon also enjoyed how Luke talked about the bleeding of a crystal is a sign of power for Sith Lords.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they would do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One of the highlights of the book for me was chapter 40. Lando's having a dream of a memory where he and his daughter are sharing ice cream, and she runs into his closet, and we get those details of she loved wearing his capes to bed because it smelled like him, and she would spill ice cream on his cape. Just the and I'm just like, my heart.
He just wants to be a dad again. It's
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, spoiler alert for Echoes of the Past. I'm gonna have to make some changes to names.
Yeah.
I think I might do like this thing where they're talking to each other and like he calls her Kadara, but then she's like, my friends call me Jana. Just this whole kind of like thing. We'll see how I try to modify things.
The only thing is I wish we would have gotten a Kasha memory. Because
agreed.
we don't have a lot of Kasha. We have Last Shot, and that's about it. And then it's like
That's the Twi'lek, isn't it?
yes.
Yes, yeah.
So it's like one of the things that I wanted in the book, and I made a list of like 17 things that I wanted or thought would happen in this book. I got 8 of them right. I expected a showing of how his daughter got kidnapped, because I can't imagine, like, we know Lando went off in search, and we learned in the book that Luke, Han, and Leia and everybody helped, but I can't imagine that Kasha would just sit at home and do nothing. So I was like, are they gonna kill her? Does she continue her search her own way? Does she go back to Rylaw and work on being, you know, a strategist there? Like, are we going to catch up again with her next time we get post-Tross content? I don't know.
Hopefully in the Lando series we'll get some information.
Depending on whenever that's set.
Yeah, true. I was actually going to ask about that because I have read Last Shot, and I'm like, okay, if Lando had a daughter and this is the relationship he's having with this Twi'lek, I'm 99% sure I know what's going on here.
Yeah.
There's no specific word on his daughter being half Twi'lek, but you know, doesn't mean they're not.
Adam
Hey.
Christopher did say definitively that Janna is not his daughter.
No.
Yeah, he said it on Twitter, and I was like, man.
Oh. Okay.
But
so,
I mean,
so Twitter isn't canon, by the way.
I never for a second thought Janna was his daughter.
I mean, I just wanted Lando to be happy. That was like my one one requirement for the Rise of Skywalker with Lando, because I was like, Luke wasn't happy, Leia's not happy, Han wasn't happy, let Lando be happy. And then watching the movie, and I'm like, okay, they kind of did it. And then reading the novelization, I was like, oh, you all suck.
Well, see, we can go to like Twitter for like clarifications on current canon, but I don't treat tweets as official canon, and I don't think you can specifically. I think actually Matt Martin is the one that said it on Twitter. He said, like, you know, tweets from writers aren't canon, and one of my head canons or heart canons is that underneath that, the big hair is like, you know, half Twi'lek stuff going on.
I mean, it's entirely possible. Also, you know, unless she's pulling a Jason Syndulla, I don't see any blue. But the melanin may have canceled that out. We don't know.
We'll have to see.
Jason Syndulla's, I don't even understand that. But also,
Yeah.
who knows? We could even maybe he ended up with what's his name? Kendra.
Lando and Kasha, that's my end game. Don't take it from me, Choco.
All right. Wouldn't dream of it.
All right. Well, we are running out of time, so I do want to point this conversation towards wrapping it up with Rey and her parents and the escape from Ochi, because this one also enhanced the Rise of Skywalker for me. In particular, even though I never had any trouble with the dagger, it's a perfect explanation for those who did, where the dagger was supplied to Ochi and it was modified by the Sith Eternal to have those inscriptions. So even though the dagger is ancient, the inscription and the modifications were made recently. And so it's this part of the story is, as you hinted at it, Bale, earlier, it's one of those things where you're just like, they were this close to Lando and Luke, and each time it's just something happened where Rey didn't meet Luke then and there. And I feel like this is kind of like the duel of the fates for this trilogy, because if Rey meets Luke there and becomes his student or something, that's an entirely different story.
Yeah, they could have had her and Ben could have had something that might have helped Ben with his issues, I guess, as well,
Or
and turn Luke
she
away
wouldn't have
from
made it.
what he did. Oh, that's that's entirely possible.
Or she would have become a surrogate daughter for Lando. Which is still entirely possible that we still get, because she's about the same age as Kadara, maybe like she's 2 years younger.
Yeah.
And you know, once we get post the Rise of Skywalker content and Rey realizes that Lando was the one that helped save her life when she was younger, that's gonna add another layer to that relationship. And the part you bring up about the dagger, one of the common criticisms I see, besides the like, how did it know the location, blah, 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 is that like, why did she pick it up and say this dagger has done evil things versus, you know, like the Youngling Slayer 9000? And I'm like, well, I think it's pretty evident in the movie that that dagger killed her parents. But now you even have the added context of not only did it kill her parents, but it like drained their life force. So that's going to mean a little bit more to her than, you know, younglings that were killed over 35 years prior. No, 50 years prior.
She went through an entire sequence after she touched that saber as well.
Yeah, so
She reacted way more strongly to the saber.
the thing is, the psychometry isn't like this thing where you just see the entire history of a thing. Like the Force will show you what you need to see, and this is the case of, like, you know, Quinlan Vos picking up that cup in Clone Wars. It's not going to show him every single person that has touched that cup. He wanted to see the history as it pertained to what they wanted to see. And in this case, it showed him what he needed to see. And in this case, Rey not having any particular, you know, inkling as to what she would want to see, the Force showed her why it was choosing her, why it was calling to her. And then why it chose her on Starkiller. And so this, it's not going to show her, you know, and the Order 66. It's not going to show her that history. And, you know, the psychometry and items, there might be like a limit to like storage space. So you could probably go only so far.
Well, let's be honest. It's a dumb complaint. It's really dumb for so many different reasons. A big one is psychometry doesn't only show you the worst thing that happens in an object's history.
No.
So why would it have to show them? Just because she saw people die here doesn't mean. And by the way, she did see people die. It's so dumb that in so many different ways that the complaint, it's hard for me to even like answer it, because it literally has no legs to stand on.
No.
The Skywalker saber would have showed her Order 66 if Dave Filoni was a part of it.
Yeah, it probably would have.
And Ahsoka.
I'm convinced he's the he learned from George Lucas. You know, George Lucas would come every few years and add something to the original trilogy. That's Dave Filoni now with all the new Star Wars projects. He's just gonna add Order 66 in some way, shape, or form into the movies.
Rise of Skywalker Special Edition. She picks up the dagger and she's just like, cowboy hat. I just absolutely loved their journey, and I found it interesting that they chose to go back to Jakku. Not that like it didn't make sense, because it does. They left her on Jakku, but I found that connection to be enhancing in a way that like it makes more sense. Not that like they were, you know, filthy junk traders and they shoulder off for drinking money. It makes sense that they would go back to and leave her with Unkar Plutt, who is seemingly the only person they could trust. Because he's just a businessman. They have something that they could offer to him, and also finding out that Song Steel is lightsaber resistant, which is incredible. But yeah, I mean, understanding their whole journey that led to them leaving Rey there, and also just seeing the stuff in the book, reading it, and being able to have that scene in the Rise of Skywalker and the Force Awakens play out like exactly like when she's, you know, when Miramir is leaning down to Rey and saying, you know, or no, it wasn't her, it was Dathan who kneeled down and said, "You'll be safe here." You know, and then on Ochi's ship, I always thought that was somewhere else, right? When I saw that in the Rise of Skywalker, but when she's like, you know, she isn't here, she isn't on Jakku, and then, you know, Ochi stabs them. But then, like, after reading this book, I rewatched the Rise of Skywalker, and when they're on the ship, when Rey, Finn, and Poe are on the ship, and they're talking about losing Chewbacca and stuff like that, I see the very wall that's behind Dathan and Miramir in that scene, and I'm just like, oh man, they were on Ochi's ship, and it does play out the way it does in the book, and it just like recontextualized the movie for me, and it shot up like 2 or 3 spots.
Yeah.
Justice for
rewatch the
Dio,
movie.
by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Dio got
Ochi was just such a dick to Dio, and Dio doesn't deserve it at all. Dio deserves
Literally.
a hug.
And then suddenly, and
I do
just
wonder-
randomly, it just had some nasty ass tubes up my nose.
How did Luke and Lando run into Dio on Ochi's ship?
They didn't.
They didn't.
They went onto Ochi's ship though. Didn't
They searched his ship. They found Dio.
Did they?
Yeah, they found like, you know, I think Luke describes finding a destroyed, or not a destroyed, but like a damaged droid with a conical head, and
Okay.
they just kind of like move on from there.
Left
They don't
it.
really pay it attention.
Okay. Interesting.
But are there any other highlights you guys want to talk about before we wrap things up?
I mean, the backstory behind that mask,
Yeah.
and I've talked about this mask far too much. The mask is cool, right? I want a replica of this mask, but the backstory behind it was excellent. I loved it, and the way it was described, like the effects of it, was really interesting. And that when the Pantoran lass, I've forgotten her name again.
Go, Matt.
Yeah, when she got like her arm crushed and then the droids kind of like carried her, put the mask back on, and then it says like, I think her scream is added to the endless amount of scream. That was really cool. I loved that. And just those little tidbits I really liked. They were just excellent.
Yeah, especially the part where you start to kind of realize that the ancient Sith, going back before Darth Noctis and Darth Sanguis, is that they relatively have the same nomenclature as Legends with the Junta Paul and Marco Ragnos, and Exum Panchard is not Darth Panchard or Darth Exum. So like the Darth kind of naming convention is relatively recent for the Sith. And I want to learn more, and I want to go back all the way to the Old Republic and meet more Sith whose names were just Joe Bob.
This is Stephen A. Sith. I also, okay, we brought in the TIE Defender. That was cool. That made me happy.
Yeah.
But no, just like what you said. I mean, we know that the Sith one time went up against Sereno and from Dooku Jedi Lost, and we also know that the Sith went up against the Chiss Empire at some point in time. And they've been dropping these like little nuggets. We need to explore this.
The Sith sealing the Drengir. Like, these are all stories that we need. Dexon download. Dexon download says Naga Sado is goat, and I do believe.
I've always pronounced it Nagasadao.
I always said shadow without the H. But I think, I don't know where I read it. It might have been one of the art books, but they were playing with the idea that the statues on Exegol were of Agenta Paul. And I don't know if that commentary can be considered canon, but I'm gonna heart canon that Agenta Paul is canon. Yeah. Wait, Pep, you've upgraded everything, looks so clean. I mean, I've changed the way I display the chat. Nothing else. And then, of course, the little message pop-up. I've done a few things.
I think one of the best things about this book, I do think this is the best Lando story we have in canon. But I think that Lando's characterization as a father is done really well here. When it talks about, obviously the memories that he's having, but also at the beginning where he feels like he's using her as an excuse to get back into some of his old ways. And just seeing him come to grips with that and him wrestling with that anger inside himself. Because obviously we've seen, the general, the Baron administrator, the gambler, the sportsman, but Lando as a father is a whole different ballgame. And it's not something he can luck his way out of.
And then, and can I also just say, I really love that these canon stories that we have truly evolve the characters in a way that is so natural for a character. I love the expanded universe, but one thing you notice is that no one changes at any point in time. Even you read Legacy of the Force, and Han, Luke, Leia, Lando are all the same exact people that they were like 40 years, 50 years prior at that point in time.
That's what you meant.
This takes Lando, and although we didn't see the in-between, we see the story in Last Shot, and we see how he talks to Han about Han trying to come to grips with becoming a father and how that's changing him. And then we look at this story, and it's a natural progression of like what would happen if Lando was a father, and how much would he love that child, and what if he lost that child. There's a whole nother story in there.
Yep.
But we've evolved the character in a way that is natural, that we aren't just getting the same Lando from Empire Strikes Back,
Yeah.
And there is a criticism that I've seen a lot, both when we got the excerpt and when the book came out, where people are talking about, well, not the excerpt for this specifically, but when people were talking about teenage Ben Solo and how Luke sort of chides him on calling him Uncle Luke instead of Master Skywalker, and people are getting mad at Luke for that. And I'm just like, okay, I understand that you love Ben Solo and you think he wasn't treated correctly, but imagine Luke with all these other students, where Ben is already special because he has the Skywalker blood, but he gets to call your master Uncle Luke, and he's, even more powerful. Like, that's special treatment if all the other ones have to call him Master Skywalker. So
exactly.
It's a leveling of the playing field. And it's also like, I don't know if y'all have ever had teachers where their kids were in your grade or in your class, and they would have to refer to them as Mr. or Mrs. or Miss whoever instead of mom or dad, because there's a level of formality that comes with instruction, and that's fine. But, once... Yeah.
And personally, I loved that because it shows the inner conflict that Luke would have had that night of like, what is my role here as a Jedi, as a master, as someone who takes care of this school and all of these kids, and what is my duty to this child, my nephew, and to Leia, my sister, who's trusted me with him. all that stuff coming into contact. I actually really loved that part because he has multiple roles to play, and in the future we know that those roles are going to clash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I just think overall the book was an incredible read. If you guys, all right, let me go up to wrap up now so you guys can unmute. You guys are good to go. No more spoilers. If you are interested in learning more about the stuff that Lando talks about in the Rise of Skywalker, the history of Rey's parents, or just in general enhancing your understanding of the sequel trilogy and the context surrounding it, this is definitely a great book to read. Also, I think we all have, non-spoiler reviews on our respective channels if you want to check those out. And I think Choco and I had a dyad moment where we both pointed to how wordy Adam gets. There were certain points in this book where I was just like reading 20 more words that I needed to read, and I'm like, can I just like get to the point? Like, so it's an interesting style. I'm not gonna drag Adam Christopher for that, but it is something that I've come to not like.
And we were this close to getting post-Tross content, because there was an epilogue that was post-Tross and it got cut for length.
Damn.
We're gonna have to wait for Rogue Squadron, man.
We hope.
Yeah.
In two ways: one, whether we get the movie, and two, that it's post-Tross.
Yeah. But really quickly, Amber Medina says, I hated getting another great couple, Dathan and Miramir, only to have them ripped away from me. And to that
It's
I
the
say,
Snow's way.
to that I say,
You have done that yourself.
because we already knew their fate. I mean, there's no point in hoping that they would, their fates would be different. So that's my response to that. Thank you so much to Chris, Star Wars Lawyer, and Bale, Grandmaster Bale, for joining us to discuss not only Shadow of the Sith, but the first chapters of Catalyst. This is your reminder now. We will be covering 8 to 14 next week. And do you guys have any final thoughts? If you guys want to plug anything or plug your socials, go ahead. We'll start with Bale.
Yeah, I mean, no real announcements as such, but yeah, you can find me on TikTok at Grandmaster Bale, and then Twitter is the same. And I just wanted to thank both of you for inviting me on, because it's been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely. And Chris?
First of all, thank you to the Dyad for having me on for another episode of Dyad in the Force. It's always a pleasure to be here, especially talking Shadow of the Sith, a book that I've been excited for since late October of 2021. Anything to plug, you can find me on pretty much all social medias at StarWarsLawyer, all one word. Check out my podcast, Too Black, Too Nerdy. The last episode released was talking Shadow of the Sith with Adam Christopher. So if you want more Shadow of the Sith content, and there are light spoilers, we don't get too heavily deep into it, so you can listen to it at any part of the book. And if you want to donate to the Empire Strikes Back Vader Cosplay Fund, there's a link that is currently pinned in the chat, courtesy of the gracious Element 7. So I look forward to having that this fall.
Right on. If you guys aren't following these guys already, why? Because you guys are in the community, but also just follow them. And also to Daxon Download, who says, I dream to one day join an awesome podcast like these always are. Great creators and greater community. Go ahead and leave your Discord in the chat right now, and I'll add you, and we'll talk about getting you on one of these episodes.
Absolutely.
And I got sidetracked mentally but after Chris went, I was planning to. But Choco, final thoughts? Any plugs?
Yeah, I mean, just the usual High Ground podcast Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. This might be the last time it's at 5:30. It might go back to 5 since I no longer have a work conflict. That being said, this week is going to be incredible. I'm excited because we have Camilla, aka Roniko Wookie. We have Mara J. Skywalker. We have Corellia Coffee Works. And we have Bale something. I can't remember the fourth person, but the whole crew that went. Yes, Tinker Bale is going to be coming on as well. Their whole crew went on the House Sound Legacy, and we're just going to hang out, talk about their experience. I would love to hear about it firsthand from people who actually got to experience it, and yeah, it's going to be an awesome conversation. So. Again, Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. We would be honored if you would join us. Awesome. And
when you started saying Bale, I saw Bale in the corner. You're just like, me? Really?
I was confused. I was like, is someone paying for my trip to the Halcyon? That's great. I'll happily come on here and talk about it.
Well, yeah. Tune into. Is High Ground still on 5:30, as you said?
Yes, yes. Okay. This week will be at 5:30 p.m. Pacific.
Tune into that. Thank you guys so much again for joining us for Dyad in the Force episode 83. And Daxon, I got that Discord right there. I'll be adding you and reaching out for a future episode. Of course, we can't leave this episode without first thanking the Dyad Squadron, of which Chris and Bale are a part of. Bale, who is still in their Imperial Star Destroyer, and
I need to change to a TIE Defender, man.
I mean, I can make that change for you for sure. And of course, Chris in the Lady Luck.
I'm not surprised.
And I also added myself there. I mean, Choco changed to a Tri-Wing, and I put myself down for a Fang Mandalorian Starfighter. But thank you guys so much for the support. It's highly appreciated, and without which we could not continue to make content. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the end. On to the next one.
For Light and for Life.
We're all the Republic.
And may the Force be with you.
Always.
or do not. There is no try. Do or do not. There is no try. Do or do not. There is no try. Do or do not. There is no try.